Good afternoon. And I have only 8 minutes, but so I try to be brief. I have 25 slides, so let's try to follow these. I'm just kidding. So the thing that I want to talk is actually really simple. It's Estonian data. We have lots of it, and there are so many opportunities to actually make it more useful. So the question is how to make it useful and what would be the actually useful use cases that benefit all of us or most of us. So I would touch few things. So we have started together with the Ministry of Economy or Economic and Communication the project to identify these type of services which are related to real-time economy. And I will cover briefly the project itself and also the main methods that we used and also the next steps that will follow. It's not yet completed, but we have some, let's say, preliminary outcomes that could be shared, especially around key services that we identified together with the government institutions and also with the private sector. So really shortly, what's the project is all about? So basically, the main goal is really to understand what could be used, and ultimately to actually increase the country's competitiveness. So in terms of what we are targeting, what are the, let's say, the vectors of our interest is government to government type of services based on the useful data that we have currently, government to business, and of course, business to business and business to consumer. And what we are trying to do is really to look through these opportunities that are best candidates for new services and could be developed together with the private sector in order to benefit both businesses, governments, and consumers. So what we are doing there? Firstly, we try to understand what are the, let's say, so-called long list of these services and really come up with a simplified business case for these, and also understand what are the so-called data limitations. As you know, Estonian government has used different infrastructure items to share the open data and overall data with everybody, but there is always limitations. So whenever government is coming up with the new services, the question is, what are the data limitations? Thirdly, is do we have any regulatory type of issues or restrictions if we have a data that could be useful? And then lastly, what would be the next step if we go ahead with some of these services? So that's really the basics of the work what we are currently conducting. And a few words about the method behind. We have actually completed this bit. So we have done some data gathering. We have talked with many of the public and private sector executives to understand what would be the real-time economy, let's say, asks or needs. And altogether, we talked with 41 different executives, and also we did a separate survey with a wider range of people. And ultimately, we got more than 500 responses back. In all fairness, what has been quite interesting is that when we touch the subject of real-time economy, it's currently the government is much more ahead compared to the private sector. What was interesting is private sector is yes, they are considering many of these open data opportunities, but to come up with the actual service, that takes time. So some training and communication is definitely needed here. in order to use all of the potential of data which is already available here in Estonia. So what we did come up with. So currently we have 7 candidates, and we had if I'm not mistaken, we had dozens of different candidates as a long list, and we ended up with the 7 key candidates, which both are beneficial, I would say high impact, and also they are beneficial for the let's say many users, if we say so like that. And I will touch some of these. I'm not going to talk about all of these 7. Maybe one of the most promising ones, and where we have a really large user base, is of course the 4th, which is the public transportation optimization. We are talking about all the public sector, public transportation users. That's more than 200,000 people every day who are using it. So we have geographical data, we have data about usage, we have a mobile data, which is quite accessible. So there are many combinations that could be used in order to optimize the public transportation. And then, of course, there are some specific services which are related to the personal identification and make it easier to actually communicate and work with current systems and services. So, for example, the second one, which is a personal identification service, especially for these so-called expats who are coming to Estonia and don't have their ID cards and all that. So how to make this life a little bit easier. And then also the 6th and also the 7th service, which is the 6th is the identifying the right to represent, which means basically they are like board members and many other who have specific rights, how to make these rights seeable in all of these services that government is providing, and really easy. Yes or no answer, basically. And the 7th one is so-called central permit register. We have specific sectors where you have permits, like in health and in social work, and there might be some other where, again, the system needs to check, hey, do you have this permit? You don't have the permit. So this is something that could be actually used quite easily. Again, yes and no type of service. And maybe another comment about these potential real-time economy-related services. The first one, really utilizing the X-road, the data exchange layer, is which is really one government entity linked, but still the laboratory results, how to make these actually usable for everybody. What was a little bit unfortunate was that as you look really critically, these 7 services, these are more government to government or government to consumer type of services, and not too many of these which are government to business. So we are expecting during the next maybe wave of analysis work and also during the next maybe 3 to 4, 5 years, that private sector will actually start using more and more government data, especially as we have the open data platform available for everybody. All right, moving on, what we do next. So we have identified these 7 services. Now we need to really understand how applicable these are, considering the requirements and potential restrictions what we have in law also. So first of all, the data quality and data maturity is always the issue. So we try to look into this based on the service. And secondly, also what are the, let's say, quality expectations. So in order to really develop it as a proper service. And then also what's the current state of machine readability, so how quickly we can move on, and also what are the key, let's say, technical interfaces that needs to be there in order to create the service, and how much does it cost. So all of these key items are are considered here. I don't know how I'm doing with the time. Hopefully, I'm good. Time's up. All right. But that's all, actually. Any comments, questions?
Well, thank you very much, and applause then, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.